Okay, I see Aaron is here. Guessing this is your first live um, classroom, but because I'm not sure that I've met you yet. But nice to meet you, Aaron. Can you hear me okay?
Gotta get out here and go help Buddy put floorings.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to get started here in about a minute, but I'm just going to share my screen so everybody can kind of see what we're talking about today. Usually we have 3 or 4 people in here, but we'll see who shows up. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this week, I just want to go over what we're doing this week, just so you have an idea. And I just like to do this before I do any demos or anything, just so we're on the same page. But um, in the lesson content, there's some articles to read there, and they won't take you very long. But one of them that was really kind of interesting to me was the trends in marketing, because the marketing trends and what works and what's most cost effective changes quite a bit. So you're going to see that a lot of the trends now are going to be digital marketing, but there's still a lot of other marketing tools. And one of them that we'll talk about for a little bit is the promotional mix and some of the other things that we can produce and design for our target audiences. So you got some content to look at there. I also posted a YouTube video on marketing trends for 2021, and they're similar to the content in the module, but they're a little bit different. So I would take a look at both of them, because you're going to be choosing one of them to actually write a paper on. So and I don't care if you use one from the YouTube or from the list in the module. That's totally up to you. But if we go, I'll just show you that real quick. So it is, yeah, right here. So if you want to take a look at that and you find, yep, that's not it. It is here. So if you take a look at this and you find another trend that's not listed in the module, in this YouTube video, you're more than welcome to write about that as well, because it'll give you a little extra, a couple things to write about. So, I'd watch that YouTube video. It's pretty interesting, and a lot of it is going to be digital marketing now, and it's just because digital marketing is just less expensive than most of the other ways to market. Okay, and we'll talk about those here in a minute. So under the assignments, you'll see you have basically there's 4, of course, the live classroom being one of them, and then we're going to create the print advertisement. I'm going to demo that because magazines can be very picky about how they get files and how they're built. Okay, and another reason we want to be kind of particular about how we put it together is because if we're working on a team, we want to make sure that everything is organized when we save those files or send them to somebody else, that everybody on the team can understand how the files put together and know how it's organized. Okay, so now, as you know, as being a student, and I know some of you are probably graphic design students and probably marketing, but it's important to understand what your responsibilities are when it comes to creating files, saving files, and those kind of things. Every design studio or agency or marketing firm is going to be different on how they go about doing that, but they will have some type of naming convention and naming file system that you'll have to follow, and I'll just kind of show you how I'm doing it for this class. But so that one shouldn't take you too long, and I'm going to show you that what I've done is taking some of those branding cues from my label and used them in the print ad, because what we want to do is we want to try to build a brand around our marketing, right? So if we can create these brand pieces so that people recognize it quickly, then we're creating a lot less work for ourselves, right? Because we can reuse the elements. Okay, a lot of times we'll have what we call a brand guide, and it will have elements that you can use throughout any type of marketing campaign, whether it could be a logo and then some other design elements that are supportive, font styles, colors. So usually we have a brand guide that kind of dictates that. We really don't have that here, but as you're working, just kind of think, okay, if I were actually making this brand, how would I build it, and what would my elements be? Okay. And then you're just going to write a paper on explanation paper on your ad and why you did what you did. Kind of what we did last week on why we design for specific target audience and our design ideation process. All right, ideation is basically how did we come up with the idea and how did we take it forward. So you'll hear that word used quite a bit in the industry, ideation, meaning when you guys sketch, you're ideating, when you're thinking about how you're going to proceed with a marketing campaign, you're ideating. And then there's also marketing trends. Again, you're going to write a little paper on that about, you're going to pick one that you think would work best for your brand for the energy drink. Okay, so and there's lots of them in there. And if you find one that's not in the list and you want me to okay it, just email me and I'll say, yeah, you can use that as a marketing tool or trend. There are some in there that are really, really just new. Like, there's VR, there's virtual reality, and there's some other things in there that are really cutting edge. So if you have some time, get in there and kind of look at what some of those things are, because they are really very interesting how people are utilizing them now. So, so again, if we just kind of go through the paper, you're just going to, you're just basically ideating about your print ad and how you develop that, right? And you just answer these questions. It says a maximum of 2 pages. So, a brief paragraph on each of these questions would be fine on that. Then the marketing trend assignment, again, basically, here are, hold on just a sec, let me find those. So here are some of the marketing trends now. And again, in the YouTube video, there'll be some others in there. So again, if you want to do some research online and find another trend that you'd rather write about, you can do that as well. These last two here are pretty much kind of the same thing. So, I'm not a huge fan of Google, but if you want to write about them, you can. But yeah, we got augmented reality. This is like really kind of cutting edge, especially if you're selling through mobile devices. It's really cool. And then personalized marketing is where we can personalize it with a person's name, like an email or direct mail or anything that we can actually imprint their name on it. It just makes things a lot more personal. We do a lot of this for our clients, which are financial advisors, and when we invite them to a seminar, we always put their name on it. It gets opened like 70% more than if they didn't. So, so there are some statistics that show that personalizing a message is really helpful in engagement. So, and then you guys can just kind of read through the rest of the module subjects. And then we have this midterm survey. So please do that just so because this is my first class here at Rasmussen. So just, be honest and tell me what you think. And, I'm sure there's some things that I could probably work on a bit, but that's always helpful for me. It's not to cause you guys busy work. It's just for us to get feedback so I can, adjust my teaching method. So real quick, I want to go over the print advertisement and kind of how I went about doing it. So you wrote a creative brief before, and basically you're just going to kind of review that. Now, last week you did the Monopoly ad, and this is totally different, right? So we're trying to keep that brand that we made for the label going into this energy drink ad. Okay, so I'll kind of explain that as I'm working. You also need to sketch out 3 ideas. Again, these don't have to be, fine art. They could just be, thumbnails, stick figures, that kind of stuff. Just kind of, we always want to ideate on paper just because it's faster. Basically, when I already knew what I was going to do after I did my label, pretty much. Because as I'm building that label, I'm thinking about, okay, how else am I going to incorporate it into some other print pieces or maybe even digital pieces? So I'm pretty much, that's kind of my process. Is like, as soon as I start working on one piece of the brand, then the rest of it's kind of falling in my head. So, and then basically you're just going to make sure, you put your label design in there, and I'll show you how I did mine. And then you need to really kind of follow these specifications. And let me explain that real quick, because if you've ever worked with a magazine, now magazines, they'll have, lots of people working in production, and they will give you specifications that are very detailed, right? Usually even more detailed than this. They'll give you live matter area, meaning how far away from the edge everything should be, because when you're printing a magazine and it has multiple pages, we got to think about the gutter and how much of the image is going into the gutter, and how, some magazines will be perfect bound, which is, the square edge, and some will be saddle stitched, which are the staples. So they'll give you different specifications for those different type of bindings. Okay. So this is standard right here, but the magazine would give you much more detail on, setup of the file, how they would like it delivered, whether it's FTP or emailed, or maybe they have an FTP site you have to upload it to. And they do that so that they have a process where people are going to proof it to make sure it's set up correctly and it's going to run in the magazine properly. Because, if you're printing 100,000 magazines, you don't want one ad to screw it all up. So they'll be pretty picky. And, I've had to send ads back 3 or 4 times just to get them passed. So you gotta pay close attention to that. And that if I'm having to go back and edit an ad 4 times and for setup, then I'm wasting a lot of time there. So I try to be as specific as I can on getting specifications from printers or from magazines or newspaper or television, whatever, because you don't want to have to go back and reset that up. It's just kind of a time bandit. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to kind of show you what I did and how I went about it. And this was my ad that I came up with. Now I'm putting compositing everything in InDesign, and I'll explain why we're doing that here in just a second. But one thing that I just kind of put this together. One thing I'm going to do is take this green tint out of there because it really doesn't belong in there. So I'm going to eventually have to go and adjust the color here. But I just kind of put this together last night. So if we take a look at how this is built, and then I'll explain why we use InDesign basically to composite while we're using Illustrator and Photoshop, which they mention in the module. Why do we need all those things? Well, it's kind of important that you understand what each one is for. So if we take a look at how this is built, okay, basically, I found an image that I liked. I had to go in and adjust. It was blue. It was just water. So I had to go into Photoshop and adjust the color to more of an orange color. And I'm not really liking the green again, but I'll go back in and adjust that. And then I have this design element that I've picked up off the label. Actually, let me go to my label here real quick. You'll see in my label, I do have this design element, okay? And I try to pick like some simple graphics to help tie everything together, right? So these little simple visual cues can really help set a design up, right? So anytime you can find little nuances to put in your design, it's going to help with the overall structure and the visual impact, right? So if we take a look at my label, I have, of course, the orange colors that I'm going to use throughout. And I didn't use the orange image again because it's on the label. I tried it and I didn't really like it. And my original thought was to have it set next to the bottle, but that would have been kind of redundant. So I didn't do that. And then I picked up, using the same fonts and everything here. So basically what I did is brought it into, I found this bottle on stock imagery and then just, flatten this image. Be sure not to save it. So, because if you do, then all your layers are gone. So, and then just select all and then copy and then just paste it in here, right? Now the resolution is a little low, but I think it'll be fine. And then basically I took a transform, just a warp, okay? A lot of these transforms here are really helpful. So you guys play with those because they'll help you a lot to wrap images or, skew images to get them in the right perspective or whatever. But I just use the warp tool and you can do this to make things look like they're wrapping around stuff. So let's take that out. So I just did that just to give it a little more contour there. And then once I was done, of course, I leave the alpha channel, on the bottle, okay? And I'll show you why here in just a second. I'm going to go back here and go edit, undo, and edit, undo, flatten, so I still have my layers. So always be sure to save different versions. I had one student who lost a whole collage because she flattened it by mistake. So what I try to instill in my students is to save versions. Like, for instance, this was what I worked on 0406. Now I have a couple other versions that are different dates, right? So I save versions as you go, then you're not, I'm not going to end up flattening it by mistake and losing a whole lot of work. So so this is my bottle that I'm going to place. And so the elements that I have here, and this is one of the reasons that I like working with InDesign as a compositing tool, because we can just go right here, right? I'm going to go edit original with. All right, so I've got the background image here, and I'm just going to right click and I'm going to edit with Adobe Photoshop. And it's going to open up, it'll open up that asset in Photoshop, hopefully. Not going to crash on me. There we go. And let's say that we make an adjustment. I'm going to just do color balance here, or hue saturation, just so you can kind of see. And I'll save it. And then go back to my document. And you can see this is a real kind of efficient way to work, right? So any pixel-based images would be in Photoshop. Any vector-based images like this design element would be, it could be done in Photoshop, but this happens to be in Illustrator. It'll take a minute to open up. And let me go back to Photoshop because I'm going to take that color adjustment off. And sometimes it updates, sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes you got to go in and update the layers. There we go. So one of the reasons we do composite quite a bit in InDesign is because it is a production tool. It's not really a design tool per se. I mean, you can do quite a bit of design in it, but it's more of a production tool than it is a design tool, and I'll explain that right here. So when we set up our document, okay, that's weird. When we set up our document, usually you want to be working in inches, but the specifications in InDesign, we're not really worried about resolution because resolution is really controlled through Photoshop for pixel-based images. Illustrator, there is really no resolution because it's vector, mostly vector-based. So, and then here you'll see, and I'll go back to my document. I have a 1/4-inch bleed set up. Where is my document set up? They moved that. Interesting. Okay. Anyways, when I set it up with an 1/8-inch bleed right here. And if you'll notice when I go to the preview, that area disappears because basically what's going to happen is when they stick it in the magazine, they trim it out. You're going to print it on larger paper and then trim it down. So we want to make sure that the imagery goes all the way to the edges on all the sides here. So just be sure you put that bleed on there. Now, one thing that I try to make students understand is that we don't really want to do text in Photoshop because once you do that, let me go back to Photoshop real quick. You're going to see what happens, right? So this is called anti-aliasing, and basically it's got a Photoshop is using pixels, okay, and to make a curved line, it just uses pixels to do that. If we look at Illustrator or we look in Photo or in InDesign, you'll see it's vector. So all your text is more easily done in InDesign, okay? All your vector-based stuff in Illustrator, and then everything else is in Photoshop, okay? So just keep that in mind because you'll get hit, like magazines will say that your type is anti-aliased because you did it in Photoshop and they won't print it. So usually we want to try to stay as close to the specifications that the magazine or printer wants as we can. So we just, don't waste time. And one of the things that we do out of InDesign is I'm going to have to show people this because they're probably just going to send me a JPEG, right? And that's fine. But when we go to export this, and it even says it says it in the module that it really wants you to set the bleed up. The only way I can tell if the bleed is set up is if you export it for print here. So when people come to the recording, they'll see that, okay, this is how we're going to set it up. This is how I need you guys to submit these. So I can see that you have bleed on there, right? So I'm going to just export it for print. And you guys might know this already, but usually what we want to do, if we set up the bleed settings, we need to click this. And usually the printer is going to want all this, okay? And I'll explain what we're doing here after I export it. So, and it's just going to export it, and then let me go open it. Okay, so here's my drink ad. Opened in an Acrobat. Okay, and Acrobat is a great pre-press tool because you can check a lot of stuff in there. But you'll see all the stuff that's associated with this file, and this is how I want you guys to submit your submissions for your ad, because I can tell a lot from these marks, right? So basically what we have here is these are for calibration of the print colors. Like basically they can adjust right on the press, the black and the red and the green, black, red, well, black, cyan, magenta, and yellow. So they use these to calibrate those as they're printing. They can adjust to make sure that they're saturated properly and they're printing correctly. And then we have the bleed mark is the outside one, and then the trim mark is the inside one. And then we have registration marks here, so they can register the plates. And then I like to always keep the information of the ad or piece that I'm doing in the document, so I know when I created it, what time it was. And this way we can see which is the newest version as we're doing it. So this is what a magazine is going to want you to send them. If they might have different specs than what the module has, but you got to really be sure that you're following this, because they will ding you and they'll send it back, and then you'll have to just kind of rework it. So that's really the kind of the production process for this ad. So you guys that are watching the recording, just be sure that you follow that process. And let me just show you real quick again. We always want to be working in InDesign in a normal view, so we can see that, you know, our bleeds are set up. But when we're ready to kind of proof it, we can turn it off to preview. Now I'm going to tell you something about InDesign, and this is kind of a little weird glitch. Is if you bring your bleed off too far, it may corrupt your file. So try to keep everything on all Adobe products. Try to keep everything within the window that they give you, because they have some glitches sometimes. Even Premiere Pro does it as well. If you get video off the edge of the screen, it does weird things. So again, yeah. So when we go to export it, okay, once you get it all done and composited, now you can do this in Illustrator as well, but again, InDesign is mentioned in the module, so that's how I'd like for you to do it. And when we go to export it for press, you just use this one right here. Don't use any of these, because they won't give you all the options you're going to need with all the marks and everything. And then make sure that all these you've set up the bleeds to an 1/8 inch. You need to turn that on. All the printer's marks need to be on there. And you can even control the weight of the marks. And offset is really, the printer may give you that depending on screen angles and stuff like that. So usually just kind of leave it here at where it is, and you should be fine. There's some other things in here that you can kind of go through, and here's a really good place to see if you're missing anything. And also, let me see where that is. Okay, they've moved. I just updated my InDesign and they moved some things here, but InDesign will also tell you if things are not set up correctly when you go to export them. So that's another reason we do that. In Photoshop and in Illustrator, usually they're not going to give you any error messages that are going to, you know, that will cause printing issues as you're going. And I always check my documents. You can see that my image, my drink bottle image is at 300 DPI. My orange image is at 300 DPI. So, you know, these are the kind of things that a printer will, or even a production person will hit you on if they're not correct. So make sure that you have all your images to correct resolution, and you know, composite everything within InDesign. It's just a much better workflow that way. Okay. You guys have any questions on that? Yeah. Anybody? If you don't respond, then that means no. Okay. Go back to my recording here. Actually, I'm going to share a screen again. Hold on just a sec. So what I want to do here real quick is just kind of show you what is coming up in week 4 so you kind of understand where this whole thing's going. Coming up, you're going to be designing a billboard. Okay, so basically you're going to create a design. Now I'm not sure about this, but I'm pretty sure. Let's take a look at this real quick. So the live classroom password will be Reptiles Lounge. I forgot to put that in there, so that will be the quiz answer for the live classroom. So just put that in there. So this is going to be a billboard for tattoos, and I actually just opened that up because I thought you were going to be doing your energy drink, but so again, following the specifications is going to be kind of important here, and you're going to notice that you're setting it up at a different size, but and then let's go to week 5. I just want to check that real quick. Okay, so here you're going to be putting everything together in kind of a package for me to review all the things that you've designed. So just keep in mind that I'm going to be looking at specifications. You're following those correctly. Of course, design. That's kind of why we're taking the classes. How do we design for engaging layouts? So just be sure that you follow kind of the video along with that and how to export your files that way. All right. Also, I've posted a couple other announcements on design trends for 2021 because these trends in graphic design do change quite a bit from year to year, meaning colors and effects and different ways to lay things out. So this is a really good video that explains those trends that are happening right now. Because when we're creating some type of portfolio of our pieces, which are going to be doing that, we want to show that we understand the current trends and how design, how these trends can work within a marketing campaign. So take a look at that. It's pretty interesting on what kind of techniques they're using. Some of them are Photoshop, some of them are just layout, some of them are Illustrator. It's just a really cool video. So, all right, that's about, go here. Gotta turn my video back on. So that's it for today, guys. You got any questions, please email me, or you can ask me right now if you guys want to turn your mics on and ask me something. If not, then you can leave the room and we'll chat soon. Guys, have any questions at all?
Not from me.
All right.
Have a good one.
All right. Catch you later.